What's going on, everybody? Good Mike War Commentaries back at you with episode 518. This episode is going to be loaded with a bunch of current WWE storyline stuff. Most of you know in the past couple of months on the channel, I have been sort of reserving the right to potentially skip a regular episode here or there if we have to sit through a really boring Raw or a really boring Smackdown. I decided that I don't want to waste my time coming up here and reviewing a show that none of us liked. So on those weeks, I might come up with an additional live stream or maybe do a one-off episode instead, or just do something different. That will not be the case this week because, my God, just based on what we saw on Raw and Smackdown alone, there is easily enough material to fill a full episode. We actually have a lot to talk about. And I don't know if it's because of the really bad rating, the record low rating that WWE got a week ago on Monday Night Raw that prompted them to kind of turn things around the following week and have a lot of stuff take place on the show, or if it's just one of those post-pay-per-view situations where you're now moving into your next pay-per-view and you're starting a whole bunch of new feuds. I don't know what was going on there, but the past 2 weeks were vastly different as far as newsworthy items coming out of Monday Night Raw and Smackdown. So this was a pretty big week of TV, and that's primarily all we're going to get into here today. I'm going to talk about Raw, talk about Smackdown, we're going to preview Evolution, we're going to preview Smackdown 1000, we're going to preview Crown Jewel, and I will probably also touch on a few other news and notes going around in the world of wrestling as well before this episode ends. And before we get started here, I also want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on my upcoming schedule for the next month because I've got a lot of videos planned between now and Survivor Series. So just to give you a small idea of what to expect here in the next few weeks, these are some of the videos that I have jotted down that are scheduled for these days. We'll start with this coming week. I'll be up here this Monday, of course, the 15th of October for my normal Monday Night Raw watch-along, but the next night on the 16th is Smackdown 1000 on Tuesday. I have made arrangements to be home that night, so I'm going to live stream my reaction to that as well. So I will be up here on Monday for Raw and on Tuesday live streaming my reaction to both shows. Then on Thursday, you'll have some sort of an episode. It depends on what we see on Monday Night Raw. If Raw stalls this coming Monday and we don't see a whole lot of progression from what we saw last week, then I might just limit next week's episode to a recap of Smackdown 1000 because we know we're going to see a ton of shit going on there. But if Raw is good and then Smackdown 1000 delivers, I'll be up here with a regular episode 519. But one way or the other, I'll be up here Thursday the 18th. Then the following week, we're back to my regular Monday Night Raw watch-along on the 22nd. Thursday the 25th will be my Evolution predictions video. And then on October 28th, I will be up here to live react to the Evolution pay-per-view on the WWE Network. A couple of days later on Halloween, October 31st, will be my Crown Jewel predictions. So I'll give you my full card predictions for that show. And then on November 2nd, you will get my Crown Jewel review. Now for me, Crown Jewel, I believe, airs at 9 a.m. in the morning. That's when it starts. And November 2nd, I believe, is a Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So I will make arrangements to be off that day. I will not be live streaming my reaction to the pay-per-view. It's just a little bit too early in the day for me to do that. So I'm going to wake up early and watch the pay-per-view in its entirety. And I will be up here later that day to give you a regular podcast-style review of Crown Jewel. So that's what you can expect on November 2nd. And then between then and Survivor Series, I've got a bunch of videos coming out too. On November 4th, you're going to get a retro Survivor Series review. On November 10th, you're going to get another retro Survivor Series review. And then on November 13th, it's going to be a PayPal donation video. It's going to be a combination DVD review and This Day in History. That's something I haven't done yet. And then in addition to all of that, I also have another PayPal donation video that I'm going to work on, but I'm not sure where that's going to be uploaded yet. It'll probably come up sometime before Survivor Series. I just haven't pinpointed a date on that. So keep an ear out in my next episode or check my Twitter page for any sort of a future announcement on that video. But that's a lot of videos coming up here in just the next 5 weeks alone. And then, of course, for Survivor Series weekend, I'm going to be there. Not sure what the video schedule is going to be like for that weekend yet. I might have to come up here and do some sort of a low budget, phone recording and upload that to YouTube from my phone, maybe from the hotel room or maybe from the car after the show. Not sure what's going to happen there Survivor Series weekend, but I'll try to get something up while I am in LA for all the festivities. I won't be attending NXT, but I will be in a bar somewhere watching it. And we're also going to be hitting up Something to Wrestle With's live show on the Saturday prior to Survivor Series as well. So I got a busy crazy weekend that weekend, and I'm just not sure what kind of video I'm going to be able to get up here to you guys, but I'm going to try to figure something out to give you some sort of a video that weekend. And then, of course, once I'm home, I'll probably do my live Raw watch-along, and then, Tuesday is Smackdown, and then at some point, Wednesday or Thursday after Survivor Series, I'll be up here with a full podcast review of the show and my experiences there and all that shit. So that's pretty much your next month here on the channel, so keep all of that stuff in mind as we move forward, and don't forget to subscribe and click that notifications bell. Considering how many videos I've got coming up here in the next month, probably a good idea to do that, so hook me up, and also please hook this video up with a like. You guys have been awesome on the likes. I'm trying to get somewhere between 200 and 300 per video now, so if you guys can smash that like button, elbow drop it, 5-knuckle shuffle it, I don't care what you do, just fucking hit it. Now that I'm done boring you to death, we can move into Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live and everything going on there. Monday Night Raw was a big show. We, of course, are right off the heels of WWE's big Super Showdown in Australia. Now, I did a review on that show. The link is right up there in the top right-hand corner of the screen, and I'm really pissed off because something happened to that review. It never got done completely fully processing or something, and I cannot get my thumbnail to show up. It's still not there, no matter how many times I try to re-upload it or edit it or change it, nothing happens. So it's almost like it got stuck in some sort of a purgatory between not being fully processed and being released public, and now I can't edit anything on the video at all. So it's just kind of like this blank screen. It's really pissing me off. It's really annoying. It's not that big of a deal. The video is working for all of you. It's just, it's probably not showing up in a lot of subscriber feeds and things like that. Now we're into Monday Night Raw, and it's time for all of the fallout from Super Showdown. Now, Super Showdown, many people say, was a glorified house show, and I agree, it pretty much was, but there were a few things that took place on that show that were monumental. And number one is the main event. Triple H and The Undertaker somehow, at their age, wrestled a 30-minute match. I mean, it wasn't a great match, but considering, where they are in their lives and their careers, I thought they did about as well as could be expected. It was also a no disqualification match, which means Shawn Michaels and Kane were all over the place in that match, getting involved and getting physical. Triple H, of course, did finally defeat The Undertaker with a lot of help from Shawn Michaels and super kicks and sledgehammers and tables, but he did get the win. After the match, he attempted to help up The Undertaker, and all four men celebrated in the ring and raised each other's hands until the Brothers of Destruction turned on Shawn and Hunter and beat the crap out of them and left them both laying in the middle of the ring to close the show. So here we are now on Monday Night Raw. The show opens with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. They're pissed off, and this was the big reveal. This was the big confirmation of the rumors that we've all been hearing for months now about Shawn Michaels. And it's funny, I don't even know if my brain can fully process that this is actually happening. Shawn Michaels and Triple H on Raw laid down the challenge for Crown Jewel. This was a match we knew was going to happen. Shawn Michaels and Triple H versus the Brothers of Destruction in Saudi Arabia. But it doesn't make it any less surreal, even though we've known it's on the horizon. Once the challenge was laid down and Shawn Michaels cut his promo talking about all the years that he has tried to honor the respect that never existed at all, almost like he's kicking himself for not coming back to the ring sooner than this. He stayed retired out of respect for The Undertaker, only to find out that The Undertaker never gave a shit about him to begin with, and now he's pissed off, and he is back in the ring. The challenge has been laid down. Tag team match at Crown Jewel, Brothers of Destruction, not against Shawn Michaels and Triple H, but against D-Generation X. They tore their shirts off after the promo to reveal DX shirts. The DX music was playing. The announcers and the audience was freaking out. Chicago did a pretty good job of reacting to this because Raw was in Chicago at the old Rosemount Horizon. That's a very rabid crowd. A lot of memorable matches and a lot of history-making matches have taken place in that arena, and the crowd is always hot, and I was happy with their reaction to D-Generation X. And I've made my thoughts known about previous DX reunions. I was not a big fan of the version of 2006, and even a couple years after that when they reunited again. I always thought that the humor was just a little bit too poo-poo and potty humor and too sophomoric and too goofy and too weird. And by God, the fucking glow sticks don't even get me started. I really miss the days of like the original DX, the 1997 DX, where not everything was so scripted and so funny and so goofy and so overproduced. It was just a little bit more raw. And one thing I will say about Shawn and Triple H's promo on Raw is that I didn't get that goofy DX feel from them. And that made me really happy. I even liked the shirt that they revealed, the established in 1997 shirt. It looked a little bit more hardcore, a little bit less silly, and I just don't want to see WWE throwing buckets of poop on people and shit like that and giving Vince McMahon chickens and saying he likes cocks and squirting mustard on each other. Like, I don't want to see that. I'd rather see an angry, pissed off, vicious D-Generation X. Because there's no way that they can even really be what they used to be. DX at this point is just a name. You know, back in the day when DX started, they were kind of like anti-authority. Well, you can't be anti-authority now when one half of the faction is the goddamn authority. You know what I mean? So it's just a little bit different now. So the one thing I absolutely did not want to see is the laughing and giggling and dancing and glow stick DX. These guys seem a little bit more serious. These guys seem legitimately pissed off. And I think hopefully it's the beginning of the end for The Undertaker. I've been calling that ever since this started. Now, this is going to be, what, I don't know, the 10th year in a row that I've been predicting The Undertaker's retirement, but this has got to be fucking it. You know, you look at everything that The Undertaker has done, it almost seems like he has changed his mind a couple of times and said, okay, I don't want John Cena or Roman Reigns to retire me. I want to go out with the guys in the company that I have the most history with. And he's got a shit ton of it with Triple H, Shawn, and Kane. So in my mind, this is the beginning of what I think would be a WrestleMania match. Now, Survivor Series is also an option because Survivor Series is in LA. But as far as some sort of an end for The Undertaker, I think you got to save that for WrestleMania and do it again in a retirement match. And I think this has got to be the third or fourth podcast in a row that I've mentioned this, and how cool it would be and how different and unique it would be if The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels retired each other. So I think what you likely do here is you have Triple H win at Super Showdown, then you have the Brothers of Destruction win at Crown Jewel. Or maybe the Brothers of Destruction win at Survivor Series if they do the match again. You know, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has pretty much purchased themselves a wrestling show here, so maybe WWE doesn't want to further anything too much with Shawn and Taker and Triple H. They just want to have the match, and then they want to have the big storyline direction switch at the next pay-per-view, maybe Survivor Series or something like that. But I think you got to have the Brothers of Destruction win at Crown Jewel or win sometime between now and 2019. Maybe even in the match you have Shawn Michaels being pinned by The Undertaker. Imagine that, Shawn Michaels in his return match. Who returns after 10 years and loses? You know what I mean? And then Shawn maybe later on issues a challenge for a rematch. You know, you put your career on the line this time or something like that. And the two of them do it again at WrestleMania, and Shawn actually beats him, and The Undertaker officially, finally, 100% retires at WrestleMania 35 in New York. Between now and then, you've still got Survivor Series, you've still got Royal Rumble, which is a stadium show. So they could do more with Shawn, Taker, Triple H, and Kane on those shows if they wanted, but in my head, it feels like this is the beginning of what Shawn and Taker are going to do at WrestleMania. That's just a guess, but it's been something that I've speculated about for weeks now, and I might as well stick with it, because so far, everything that I predicted has come true. And it's going to be weird to see Shawn Michaels back in the ring. I can't believe it's happening. I'm curious what kind of wrestling attire he's going to wear, because he's bald now. You know, I don't know if Shawn Michaels is going to wrestle with the cut-off sleeves t-shirt and a bandana around his bald head, or if he's going to come out there in full-on, sparkly, sexy boy outfit. You know, I'm kind of curious how that's going to go down, because they are D-Generation X, so it's going to, Shawn Michaels isn't going to come out to the sexy boy music, at least he's probably not. He's going to be coming out there with the DX music, which means he might be able to dress a little bit less male strippery for this fight with The Undertaker and Kane. And it's so ironic because I've always said for so long how Shawn is living proof that there really is such a thing as a retirement in wrestling, because when he retired, he stayed to his word and he never came back. Now I'm saying that Shawn Michaels is proof positive that there is no such thing as retirement in wrestling, because unless you're sidelined with an injury, you will be back. And Shawn Michaels was the one guy that I thought was going to stay true to that, but hey, you don't know. He had no way of knowing that 8 years later, some country was going to give WWE $1 billion to run a few shows there. And if they want to throw Shawn a few million to get back in the ring, fuck yeah, I'd be doing it too. You got a family to think about. Not that Shawn really needs the money, but hell, you can't really turn down that chunk of change. I think Shawn would have gladly stayed retired, but when WWE calls you up and says, look, dude, Saudi Arabia really wants you, we will pay you so much fucking money to get back in the ring. By the way, you'll also work with Undertaker, and he's cool with it. And look at what he's done lately. He's come back from retiring like twice. So you really shouldn't have to worry about disrespecting the person that retired you. I don't think any of that shit matters. Money talks. And Shawn is back, and I'm interested. I've said before that I would have been perfectly happy if Shawn Michaels stayed retired and I never have to see him wrestle again. But now that he's back, the dude was such a legend and such an icon, and truly probably the best in-ring worker that we've ever seen. I will, out of respect, support any decision Shawn Michaels makes. So that match is now set for Crown Jewel, DX versus the Brothers of Destruction. And it was funny, it was so dumb. I guess WWE tried to make it look like DX hacked their Twitter page, and they put their DX logo as their avatar. They changed their banner pic, I think, to the headquarters with DX spray painted on it. Hell, DX even hacked my YouTube page and spray painted DX all over my Good Mic Work logo here on the screen. So they're treading that fine line between being the goofy, sophomoric guys and being, the badass, don't fuck with us guys. And I just hope it's a good enough balance to where I enjoy it, because I was not a fan of 2006 DX or 2009 DX, the couple of times that they've reunited in the past. And to me, nothing ever tops what they did back in 1997. So this might be the closest we ever get to that old school DX. And so far, I don't hate it. Moving on to some other crazy things we saw on Monday Night Raw, we had a couple of heel turns, and one of them I was so happy about. One of them I tried to predict to happen at Super Showdown involving Bobby Lashley. Lashley and Cena teamed up at Super Showdown to take on Kevin Owens and Elias, and I had predicted after Lashley and Cena win the match that Lashley should turn on him. Because Lashley is not getting over as a babyface. He's fucking awful. WWE has finally put him with somebody, a mouthpiece, a character, a sidekick, Lio Rush, that so far is doing a pretty good job, and I think adds a lot to Bobby Lashley because he's bland as hell on his own. And I thought if you had Lashley attack John Cena, Cena can go back to China, finish doing whatever he's doing. Lashley can run as a babyface, run as a heel on Monday Night Raw, and then a few months later, John Cena can come back and you got a built-in program just waiting for you. They didn't do that, but they came close because the very next night on Monday Night Raw, or a couple nights later, on Monday Night Raw, Bobby Lashley took on Kevin Owens in another one-on-one match. Lio Rush was on the outside of the ring doing his best Jimmy Hart impression. Lio had the microphone and he was talking, basically cutting a promo during the match. Very similar to what Jimmy Hart would do on the megaphone back in the day. But the funny thing is the Chicago crowd was not having it. They were not into Bobby Lashley. They were not into Lio Rush. They were booing the shit out of both of them, and they were cheering Kevin Owens hard. I mean, real hard. It's almost as if the crowd was smartened up before the match as to what's going to happen, because they essentially called this thing. After Kevin Owens got defeated by Bobby Lashley, he's leaving with Lio Rush, and he turns around to look back into the ring where Kevin Owens is laying and decides to run back into the ring and attack Kevin Owens some more. Attacks his leg, clips his knee out from under him, winds up injuring both of his legs, the leg that was already injured, and he injured the other one. He was slamming them up against the ring posts. It was a vicious attack from Bobby Lashley onto Kevin Owens, and I'm watching this on the live stream on Monday, and I'm like, wait a second. Did we just see a double turn take place in the same arena that the greatest double turn in the history of the business took place? Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13? That's pretty cool, and it looks like that's what we got. I don't know if Kevin Owens might be injured or what's going on here, if they're trying to write him off of TV for a while. I mean, a few weeks ago he quit and came back 1 week later. He seems like, to me at least, a guy who on the surface would be better as a heel, but you gotta give him a try as a babyface. I think Kevin Owens can surprise a lot of people, and I'm looking forward to his babyface run if this does turn out to be an actual double turn. I was happy to see that. That was different. I didn't see it coming. I sort of predicted something similar at Super Showdown when I pitched the idea of Lashley going heel, but they waited. They did it on Monday Night Raw instead, and I think this is going to do wonders for Bobby Lashley. Still don't know if it's going to make him that megastar that he was hoping to be and that WWE was hoping for him to be. I don't know if he's ever going to reach, the greatness of a Brock Lesnar or anything like that, but he's at least on the right track now because he was going nowhere as a babyface. And speaking of babyfaces turning heel, The Bellas did turn heel on Ronda Rousey on Monday night. Now, this was something that we also saw coming. I pitched the possibility of this happening at Super Showdown. It did not happen, of course, and Rousey and the Bellas won at Super Showdown, with Rousey tapping out both Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan in the finish of the match. So on Monday night, they do a rematch. Bellas and Rousey versus the Riot Squad again. And I was saying in the live stream, I'm like, okay, if you didn't give the Riot Squad the victory at Super Showdown, which you could have done if you went with a heel turn on the Bellas, or if the Bellas, turned on Rousey in the match, or maybe there was a miscommunication and she got nailed by accident and one of the Bellas got pinned and then they turned on her after the match. I thought the Riot Squad was going to take one of these matches due to the Nikki Bella and Ronda Rousey rumors that we've been hearing. But that didn't happen on Super Showdown or on Monday Night Raw. Ronda Rousey tapped out all three members of the Riot Squad within 3 days. Tapped out Logan and Morgan together, and then tapped out Ruby Riott in the finish of the 6-woman match on Monday Night Raw. And then after the match, much like Super Showdown, Bellas and Rousey are in the ring celebrating together. Ronda turns her back and she's nailed by Nikki Bella. The two of them jump Ronda Rousey, start beating her up. And it was hilarious because the look on Ronda's face was like, oh, no, you didn't. And she got up and beat the shit out of both of them. Like, the one cool thing about this is that they didn't make Ronda look weak. Even though the Bellas eventually regained the upper hand on her, threw her into the ring steps and beat her up pretty good, Ronda was fighting for her life. And she was basically kicking both of the Bellas' asses at the same time. And it was during all of that I was saying, if WWE wants to take the belt off of Ronda Rousey for some reason, they should really stack the deck against her at Evolution, because there's no way that Nikki Bella has a chance to beat her one-on-one. They should make it a handicap match. They should put Ronda in the ring against both Bellas, put the title on the line, and have a special guest referee in the form of Stephanie McMahon. But the more and more I look at this, the fans are really up in arms about this. They're just mortified that Nikki Bella is getting a title shot against Ronda Rousey. And I think I would agree with that if this was a babyface match, if it was just two friends having a spirited competition and they're trying to make it look like Nikki Bella actually has a chance and is a credible threat to Ronda Rousey and her title. No fucking way. But her getting the title shot as a heel, I don't really think is necessarily a bad thing. Because I think a lot of fans are terrified that Nikki Bella is going to take the belt off of Ronda Rousey. And that's been in the back of my mind too, because everything that's been going on between Ronda and Stephanie this year, 100% that Stephanie McMahon is going to have to play a role in Ronda Rousey losing that title at some point. She just has to. So when you have the potential heel turn of the Bellas and the potential heel turn of Natalya, which is one that I've been calling ever since WrestleMania, you would think that all of these things are going to happen and Stephanie McMahon has got some master plan to extract revenge from Ronda Rousey for all of the things that Rousey has done to her. That's kind of in my head where they would go eventually when they want to take the belt off of Ronda Rousey. However, I'm kind of changing my mind on all of that. I suppose that they could take the belt off of Ronda Rousey if they wanted to, but I'm starting to think now that you at least have to have in the back of your mind what they might do next year at WrestleMania. Because now we're into October. It's not really time to really set your plans in stone yet, but you have to have a general idea, I think, of what direction you want to go in for WrestleMania. And when I look at the women's division, to me, in my mind, based on what we're looking at right now and judging from the current landscape of the women's division in WWE right now as we speak, I am thinking that we're going to get Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte at WrestleMania. And if you do that match, I think Ronda remains champion the whole time. Don't forget, Ronda Rousey was a legend in the UFC. Set all kinds of records. She's a Hall of Famer there. She's the Brock Lesnar of the women, really, is what she is. And so far, WWE has booked her well. They've protected her well. I don't think a loss here to Nikki Bella is something that the WWE would do. I know the fans think that WWE loves the Bellas, and it's ridiculous what they do with them. I understand that. When the Bella twins returned for their tag team match a few weeks ago, they were being promoted and hyped as two legends returning to the ring. Don't get me wrong, that makes me throw up as much as the next guy. But even with WWE delusionally believing that the Bellas are legends, I don't think they would be stupid enough to have Nikki Bella beat Ronda Rousey in a match, unless you have a whole bunch of people turning on Ronda Rousey. You got Brie Bella getting involved. You got Stephanie getting involved. You've got Natalya turning heel. You might even have to have Brock Lesnar show up and F5 the bitch in order to get that belt off of her. So the way I see it happening and the way I see it going down right now is that Ronda Rousey's going to retain at Evolution. She's going to tap Nikki Bella out. If she's going to go on this run, this unstoppable, unbeatable run into WrestleMania, much like Asuka did last year, and then have to face Charlotte, that's a big match for New York. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you're tired of Charlotte. Oh, she's being booked like Roman Reigns. Fuck off. She's a great fucking worker. And when it comes to the women in the company right now, those are your two alphas. So it would seem likely to put them on a collision course for WrestleMania. And I can even go one further. WWE is moving Smackdown to the Fox network next year for a lot of money. And we can already see signs and shades that the big brand extension that is only 2 years old is starting to crumble a little bit at its foundation. So if they're going to be moving SmackDown to Fox, and Fox is going to want all of their top stars, you might want to think about ending the brand split. And if you do that, that means you're going to have to unify a couple of belts. So imagine that. Imagine if Charlotte beats Becky at Evolution and Ronda retains against Nikki at Evolution, and both women go on a long run between now and WrestleMania, beating everybody that's put in front of them, and then they collide at WrestleMania in a unification match. Winner take all, may the best woman win. And here's another one. Imagine this. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but we've all been asked the question before. I've been asked it in Q&As, WWE officials. I've heard fans ask Stephanie McMahon this before. And that question is, do you think a women's match will ever be able to main event a WrestleMania? Well, if that is ever going to happen, this is your best chance so far. I mean, Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte, both of them on an incredible winning streak and a title run in a unification match, that could actually be your main event for WrestleMania. I know that's far-fetched. You know, I wouldn't think that two women would main event WrestleMania. I just don't see it happening. But this is probably about as big of a female match that you can make currently in WWE. And I'm just saying, who knows? Who knows? So I know that's looking way ahead. But when I think about this Ronda Rousey situation with the Bellas, and all the fans are all up in arms about it and how it's bullshit, and the Bellas, you know, don't deserve any of this, I wouldn't worry too much. I've got a pretty good feeling that Ronda Rousey is going to rip both of Nikki's arms off and probably rip her tits off too. So I wouldn't worry too much about Nikki beating Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's title. I think WWE has bigger plans in mind as it relates to Ronda. And unless they just need to take the belt off of her for storyline purposes, and the only way you can do that is to basically make it a 10-on-1 situation or something like that, where the deck is stacked so hard against her that there's no way she can, you know, come out on top. That's the only way I think they're going to get the belt off of Ronda Rousey right now, based on how they're booking her so far. So just keep that in mind for the future. I know WrestleMania is still 6-7 months away, but it's something, at least at this point, we need to start thinking about. Speaking of the Evolution pay-per-view, we also had a couple of big changes to that card announced on Monday Night Raw as well. Now, Alexa Bliss had suffered an injury. I was completely unaware of it, or maybe I had heard about it after Hell in the Cell and then forgot about it. I'm not sure, but she hasn't wrestled since then. So there was supposed to be 2 one-on-one matches booked for Evolution. Trish Stratus coming out of retirement to take on Alexa Bliss, and Lita coming out of retirement to take on Mickie James. Well, on Monday Night Raw, they had a promo with all 4 women. Trish Stratus cut a promo, and then Alexa and Mickie came out to interrupt, and then Lita wound up coming out as well, and they agreed to now make this a tag team contest. So I guess they are consolidating these two matches into a tag team match, essentially to protect Alexa Bliss, who is probably not going to be 100% going into Evolution. So probably a smart move to do that there, and it was a pretty meaningless segment otherwise. Not a whole lot was said. Crowd wasn't really into any of the mic work going on, but that match is now official. Alexa Bliss will be teaming with Mickie James to take on Trish and Lita now at Evolution. We also got some really big news involving the World Cup. Now, the World Cup that will be taking place at Crown Jewel is going to be an 8-man tournament. It's basically going to be a King of the Ring tournament. 8 men, 1 night. And they're doing qualifying matches for this. It's going to be 4 men from Raw and 4 men from Smackdown. Now, one guy that did not have to qualify was John Cena. They just flat out announced him as one of the participants in the tournament, and he doesn't even have to qualify. Everybody else has to win qualifying matches to get in. And one of the first qualifying matches we had took place on Raw. The whole thing was set up by Baron Corbin. Constable Corbin, I guess, created this match basically as a way to get him in to the tournament. It was a battle royal involving himself and a shit ton of jobbers and goofy-ass outfits. A lot of these guys were local competitors, I'm sure, maybe a couple of NXT guys, and we even had a conquistador out there. So the winner of the Battle Royal was going to get entered into the World Cup tournament. So Baron Corbin is in there kicking everybody's ass, throws everybody out of the ring, but before the match starts, the conquistador slips underneath the bottom rope and is just chilling out. He's hanging out on the outside of the ring, messing around with the crowd, and you're looking at this conquistador, and he does seem to be a little bit stocky, and he's got a thick neck, and as soon as you saw him sitting out there on the outside of the ring, you knew 100% that was fucking Kurt Angle. I'm surprised I didn't call it earlier than that when he was standing in the ring, because it's so obvious Kurt's body type, but I didn't notice it until he was sitting out on the outside of the ring. Once he was out there, you were like, oh yeah, that's Kurt. But of course, after Baron Corbin thinks he wins by tossing out everybody, the conquistador gets back in the ring, eliminates Baron Corbin, rips off the mask to reveal that he's Kurt Angle, and that was great. Kurt Angle is back, and Kurt Angle is now entered into the World Cup, and we've heard the rumors that he was going to be training for a comeback. I'm sure we're going to have Kurt back now at Crown Jewel. I'm almost positive we're going to get a Team Angle versus Team Corbin match at Survivor Series, potentially with, control of Raw on the line. That's very possible. So between the DX reunion and Shawn coming back into the ring, Lashley turning heel, the Bellas turning heel, Kurt Angle coming back dressed as a fucking conquistador, we had some crazy shit going on this Monday Night Raw, and it wasn't over yet. We still had the main event, another Super Showdown rematch, 6-man match with the Shield against the Pack. I guess Strowman, Ziggler, and McIntyre are calling themselves the Pack. They got the victory in this one. I predicted them to win at Super Showdown. I thought Strowman would pin Roman Reigns, giving him some momentum into his title match at Crown Jewel. And incidentally, speaking of his title match, Paul Heyman made a surprise appearance before this match started, which was really random and felt out of place, but he did go on to cut a promo about Brock Lesnar and the match at Crown Jewel, and he's been mentioning in every promo he's done in the past couple of months that Brock Lesnar is going to be a dual champion, winning the WWE Universal title and winning the UFC Heavyweight title, which we know he's got a title shot coming up here in the next few months in the UFC. So very interesting what they're doing here with Brock Lesnar. I still think his appearance at Crown Jewel doesn't mean anything. He is not going to win the title. I think this is just giving that show another star, giving Brock Lesnar another big payday, but his focus clearly is on the UFC, and I don't see him coming back right now for a Universal title run. I actually predict that Roman Reigns is going to hold the Universal title until WrestleMania. So I don't think Brock Lesnar is going to win, but it's still nice to see Paul Heyman coming out, cutting promos on his behalf, and vowing that Brock Lesnar is going to be walking around with 2 title belts. And I also wouldn't put it completely past Paul Heyman to maybe align himself with somebody else in the future. Maybe a Braun Strowman, maybe a Drew McIntyre, maybe even a Bobby Lashley. Maybe the more heelish Bobby Lashley gets, the more he realizes he doesn't need Lio Rush, and he turns on him and joins up with Paul Heyman instead. But I think with some of those badasses you have right now, especially with a guy like McIntyre, who's been rumored to be getting a big push coming up next year, I think he would be an ideal guy to even win the Royal Rumble, if you ask me. If Roman Reigns is going to hold the belt going into WrestleMania, he's got to drop it at WrestleMania. That would be a nice change. So I think it would be better for the fans who hate Roman Reigns to just let him hold the belt until WrestleMania. You don't want him to drop it right now, because you know what happens if he drops it right now? That means he's going to fucking win the thing again at WrestleMania. So it's probably in your best interest as a Roman Reigns hater to just hope he keeps that belt as long as possible, because then the odds are very good that he'll drop it at WrestleMania instead of winning it at WrestleMania. And I think we would all be happier wrestling fans with that scenario. So if you have Drew McIntyre wind up winning the Royal Rumble, maybe even aligning himself with Paul Heyman, and then he goes into WrestleMania to beat Roman Reigns, I think that would be great. I even said this past Monday during my live stream, when you look at Drew McIntyre, when you look at his physical presence that he has, his look, his physique, his hair, his mic skills. He seems to be more of the prototype guy than Roman Reigns is. Everybody thinks Vince McMahon jacks off to Roman Reigns because of how physically impressive he is and how good looking he is and how long his hair is and how good his beard looks and what great shape he is in, how good he is in the ring. I think Drew McIntyre has every bit of the ability and the tools that Roman Reigns has, and some say he might even have more. A lot of people think he's better in the ring. I think he's better on the mic, and I even think he has a little bit better of a look than Roman Reigns. I think he looks more like Roman Reigns than Roman Reigns does. You know, when you think of Vince McMahon and the type of guys he likes, Drew is the exact blueprint, you would think, of what Vince McMahon wants in a WWE superstar. So if you have Drew McIntyre win the Rumble, he can then go on to defeat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I personally would also like to see Daniel Bryan win the Royal Rumble and go on to WrestleMania to defeat The Miz for the title. So, you know, one guy's going to have to win the Rumble, the other one's going to have to win an Elimination Chamber or get a title shot some other way. But right now, my two number one picks for the Royal Rumble is either McIntyre or Bryan. You guys let me know between those two, because everybody likes both of them. Let me know in the comments below. If you had your choice, who would you rather see win the Royal Rumble between those two? I'm actually curious. I should put that up as a Twitter poll, too. I'd be curious to see what the overall consensus of the fans is on those two guys winning the Rumble. But the Pac got the victory this week on Monday Night Raw. Drew McIntyre did get the pin. He pinned Dean Ambrose after hitting him with the Claymore, and they continued to tease dissension on both sides here. The Shield has got some dissension, and the Pac has got some dissension. Now, I've said right from the start that this alliance between McIntyre, Ziggler, and Strowman cannot last forever. It seemed like they were three guys that were just slapped together randomly to give the Shield somebody to feud with, and there's really not much of a shelf life here with this faction, in my opinion. And now they're doing the thing where Dolph Ziggler isn't carrying his own weight because he's just a little guy in between these two monsters in this faction. There was even the one spot in the match where Strowman grabbed him by the throat and threatened Dolph Ziggler. And then after the victory, after they won and Dean Ambrose got pinned, he left and walked away, leaving Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns in the ring by themselves. So you don't really know which faction here is going to implode first. But I'm still thinking that this is more Dean Ambrose just being Dean Ambrose. I'm thinking they're going to hold off the Shield split a little while longer. At least that's what I would like to see them do. WWE fucking rushes everything, so knowing them, the Shield will split up this coming Monday night on Raw. But this is something that I think you can hold off. I think you can hold this off till next year. I think you can have the Shield intact going into the Royal Rumble, where you have Dean tossing out Seth or some shit, you know, leading to some big WrestleMania match. There's also the speculation that we might finally get the Shield triple threat. Now, I know we've gotten it, but getting it on the WrestleMania stage is something that we've wanted to see for, the past 5 years? But I think the inevitable split and implosion of the Shield does not need to happen tomorrow and can easily be stretched out into 2019. Why don't we move on to Smackdown now, finally? I mean, that was a lot to talk about with Monday Night Raw there, but Smackdown didn't have as much going on, but it still had a lot of newsworthy things going on. Now, the show opened up with a rematch for the SmackDown Women's title. Champion Becky defending against Charlotte. There was a stipulation in this match that if Becky got disqualified like she did at Super Showdown, she would lose the belt. So, again, much like Super Showdown, I was not expecting a title switch here because I'm expecting these two ladies to work at Evolution. So what they did in this match is they did a double countout. Since you can't have a DQ, they got counted out instead. They continued to brawl after the match that saw Becky and Charlotte on the ramp. Becky is all the way up on the stage, and Charlotte then charges her and spears her right through the big LED screen. That was a pretty good spot. And I thought the match itself, despite the count-out finish, wasn't bad. I've seen some people bitching about this feud on Twitter and stuff, saying, oh, I'm so sick of this feud, and I'm so sick of this angle. What are you guys sick about? I don't understand. Didn't this shit just start in August? It's only been 2 months. You know, yeah, it seems like they're having a lot of matches, but that's what happens in the current climate of wrestling. When you have a show every 3 fucking days, you're going to have a lot of rematches. So they did the finish at Hell in the Cell, and they did the finish at Super Showdown, and now they did this count-out shit. And it's all just a way to lead and to build to the big blow-off at Evolution, which is now here. Later on SmackDown, Paige announced that due to the DQ finish and the count-out finish, that the women will be facing one more time at Evolution in a last woman standing match. Now, they're billing this as the first time ever, but I do think they've done this once in NXT, correct? So this is the first time I think on a WWE stage they've done this, but I'm happy about it. I think this is the direction you go in. I think it's a perfect match for the two of them. I think they've worked well together so far. I've enjoyed the matches. I've enjoyed Becky's new attitude. A lot of people had a problem with what happened at SummerSlam and thought it was bullshit and all of this, but I think WWE landed on their feet. I think it's all been fine. So I know a lot of people are like, well, why is Becky the heel and Charlotte's the face? And I don't fucking even care about that. I'm enjoying the little angle. I think the women are working well together, and I think it's finally something significant for Becky to do because she wasn't really doing much for the past year here. So they turn her heel, they give her a title program, and they put her with the best woman in the company currently. That's good for Becky. Everything that she's doing is good. Now, Evolution is a whole nother story. I mentioned my whole WrestleMania idea a little bit earlier on when I was talking about Monday Night Raw. I can almost see Charlotte regaining the belt back from Becky at Evolution and then going on a run with it until WrestleMania to collide with Ronda. But maybe you don't do that. Maybe Charlotte doesn't need the belt. Maybe you wind up having Becky win this match somehow, and then Charlotte winds up challenging Ronda Rousey for the Raw title at WrestleMania. Because don't forget, we're going to have a Women's Royal Rumble as well. And if the same rules apply for the men that apply to the women, Charlotte could win the Rumble, allowing her to challenge whoever she wants at WrestleMania, which means she could jump over to Raw and challenge Ronda Rousey. So Charlotte doesn't necessarily have to beat Becky at Evolution, but I think it's likely. But I certainly am not sick of this feud. It's only been 8 weeks. The fans are so goddamn impatient. You know, like, aren't you happy that Becky is in a world title program? Aren't you happy that she's champion? Instead, you're bitching. Just relax, man. This was probably from the start, from the minute WWE started this issue between Becky and Charlotte over the summer, they were eyeballing Evolution as the blow-off. To me, that seems obvious. Next up on SmackDown, we had another World Cup qualifying match. This one was between Jeff Hardy and Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe, of course, came up short in his attempt to win the WWE title at Super Showdown, and he suffered a leg injury in kayfabe in that match as well. And he had an injured leg going into this match with Jeff Hardy, and it kind of had a funny finish. And it had a finish that made me think that there's more to this than meets the eye. Samoa Joe is just simply not able to continue the match. He crumpled down to the mat at one point during the match. His knee just gave out on him, and the referee decided to end the match due to Joe being unable to compete. So a referee stoppage entered Jeff Hardy into the World Cup, and he now joins the field. And just to fast forward, since we're talking about the World Cup, later on in the main event of SmackDown, Randy Orton took on the Big Show in a World Cup qualifying match as well, and Randy Orton won. So that means when you look at the field right now for the World Cup, you've got John Cena, Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, and Jeff Hardy. All legends, all WWE Hall of Famers. One of them already is a WWE Hall of Famer. So if that gives you an idea of how that tournament bracket is going to look, it's obviously saying that it's going to be mostly legends. And WWE dropped a bombshell for next week at SmackDown 1000, another World Cup qualifying match between, get this, Shinsuke Nakamura and Rey fucking Mysterio. Oh my God. You know, I just seeing that on paper is like, wow, that right there is a dream match. I'm excited to see that one next week. But when you look at the field for the World Cup so far, and you look at that match next week, I'm going to put all of my money on Rey Mysterio. Because you got all WWE legends in the tournament so far. I don't see Baron Corbin or Shinsuke Nakamura or anybody like that getting in. I think it's going to be all these big time, these WWE legends that are going to round out this field. So I'm going to go with Rey Mysterio to beat Shinsuke next week because Shinsuke's U.S. champion. He can just defend the belt or something at Crown Jewel. He doesn't even need to be in this tournament. So I think Rey is going to wind up beating him next week, and he's going to join this field of legends. And when I look at the finish between Jeff Hardy and Samoa Joe, it got me thinking. Samoa Joe fell short in his feud with AJ Styles. A lot of fans are really upset about that. They think Samoa Joe was buried. They think Shinsuke Nakamura was buried. When I say the opposite, I say, you know what, guys? Sometimes people just don't win the belt. One of the biggest problems with fans today is they want everybody on the roster to be WWE champion. Everybody. And if WWE has different plans in mind for AJ Styles, I've been mentioning for the past 6 months now that I want AJ not only to hold the belt for a year, but I want him to surpass the run that CM Punk had back in 2012. And in order to do that, AJ's going to have to hold that title until the Royal Rumble. So if WWE wants him to hold the belt that long, that means he's going to have to survive the feuds that he has between now and then. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. So the fans are like, well, the problem with that is that AJ Styles, he's slowing down the momentum of Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe. Slowing down their momentum? What do you mean? They were built up into a world title feud and they just didn't win the belt. That's it. What are you going to have them do? Get the best of AJ Styles, but have AJ somehow cling to the title? Then that's going to go against your whole keep the champions look strong fucking argument that everybody bitches about all the time. Well, why are champions losing on TV? It hurts them and it diminishes their run and makes them look weak and all this crap. So basically they want... they want the guys to win the belt, but if they don't, then they want the champion to be... I can't figure out where their fucking mindset is. Basically, when it comes to guys who have not been WWE champion getting a title shot, the fans insist they must win. Shinsuke Nakamura needed to beat AJ Styles. Well, he didn't. So then they move on to the next guy. Okay, so then Samoa Joe's got to beat him. I'm like, well, if Shinsuke won, then Samoa Joe wouldn't even be getting this opportunity, because he'd probably be feuding with somebody else. So to me, it's a whole lot of bitching for no reason. And aside from Samoa Joe winning the title, I didn't know what you guys wanted out of that feud. It was a really fun and entertaining angle between the two of them. I enjoyed everything they did on TV, especially Samoa Joe. But in storyline, when you see Samoa Joe going to AJ Styles' house and threatening his family and damn near committing a home invasion, of course AJ Styles needs to beat this fucker's ass the next time they face each other. And AJ Styles tapped him out, and that was the end of the feud. Sometimes people just don't win the belt. It's not that it doesn't make any sense. It means that you got a great WWE champion that's on a hell of a run. Fans are always looking for any and every excuse to be pissed off. I even get the whole, well, AJ's feuds haven't been that great. I think they've been fine. Yeah, they made a few missteps in the Shinsuke Nakamura feud, but aside from giving Nakamura the title, what did you want? They went with a bunch of non-finishes. Did you want AJ just to straight up beat him in all 4 pay-per-view matches? Because it was clear, looking back now in hindsight, that the plan never was to put the title on Shinsuke Nakamura. They plan on keeping it on AJ the whole time, and this has been their plan with him. So they need to put opponents in front of him during his long run that he's on. He has to face somebody. He can't just not defend the title. He's not Brock Lesnar. So really what it comes down to, like I always say at the end of the day with the fans, is it has nothing to do with what's good or bad for the business, and it has everything to do with who they want to win and who they don't want to win. And they're mad that Samoa Joe didn't win the title, so they're trying to pretend that WWE made some mistakes with the booking. No, they didn't. AJ is champion. He had a challenger, and he beat him. End of story. This mentality just doesn't make any sense to me. So for me personally, you may have a big issue with Samoa Joe not winning the title. You may have a big issue with Shinsuke Nakamura not winning the WWE title. I don't have an issue with jack shit. And I still think it's possible, based on what we saw with Samoa Joe and Jeff Hardy on Smackdown, that maybe Samoa Joe finds his way into this tournament last minute. Because remember, the referee had to stop the match. Samoa Joe's character isn't going to let that slide. He's going to think that's horseshit. The referee is the one that beat me. Jeff Hardy could never beat me. The referee had to stop the match in order for me to lose. I want another shot at it. So let's say you start loading up this tournament with legends and you get 2 more guys in there. You currently have a field of about 5 once Ray gets in next week. You add 2 more guys that have been with WWE for a long time and have created a long legacy for themselves. You guys can throw me ideas on who you think those guys would be, but I think when there's 1 spot left, maybe Samoa Joe gets in at the last minute, gets a qualifying match, gets a second chance from Paige on SmackDown, wins, enters the tournament, and it's basically Samoa Joe and 7 WWE legends. And you know what? You have Samoa Joe win. Think of all the potential matches you could have in this thing. If Samoa Joe entered that tournament and actually won it, on his way to the tournament finals, he could have a dream match with John Cena. He could have a TNA rematch with Kurt Angle. He could maybe even choke out Randy Orton. Imagine that. Imagine if Samoa Joe wins the World Cup tournament by defeating Kurt Angle, John Cena, and Randy Orton. You think that would be a suitable bounce back for him not winning the title against AJ Styles? I fucking think so. There's also the rumor that maybe he can find his way into the Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles match at Crown Jewel with The Miz and make it a fatal 4-way. But if I had my choice, I would let Samoa Joe win this tournament by beating 3 legends on his way to the trophy. Braun Strowman won the big battle royal back at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Maybe you give Samoa Joe the big World Cup. Kind of like when Bret Hart wasn't going to be able to win the belt back from Yokozuna, so they created the King of the Ring to give him something to win, since they didn't have plans for him in the title picture at the time. Maybe that's what they're doing with Samoa Joe. They want to use him, they want him to be top talent, but they also don't want the belt on him right now, so maybe you do this instead. So just a thought, Just a thought as it relates to Samoa Joe. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just think it would be cool if it did. And speaking of Samoa Joe and what he winds up doing at Crown Jewel, whether he's in the tournament or whether he finds his way into the WWE title match, that segment was next on SmackDown, and that was pretty entertaining. Miz TV with his guests Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. Kind of weird to see the Miz and Daniel Bryan sitting right next to each other when they've had this long, personal, deep rivalry for so many years. Miz is hosting the thing, and he's trying to stir up shit between Bryan and AJ, who are showing a ton of respect to each other. They shook hands at the beginning, and no matter what the Miz tries to do, neither one of them are falling for it. They're both very confident. Daniel Bryan says he knows he can beat AJ, and AJ says he knows he can beat him, and they got in each other's faces a little bit, much to the delight of the Miz. And then they just kind of revealed that they're just fucking with him. They're not going to come to blows, and Miz's desperate attempt to stir up shit between the two of them isn't going to work. And they both start making fun of the Miz and talking about how fun it is to punch him in his face. And AJ talked about the time that he knocked his teeth out. And then the Miz just fucking snaps and cuts one of his big Miz promos. He's so mad. It was so funny watching the Miz. He got so mad that I think he even climbed outside of the ropes and stood on the apron and was screaming at the two of them in the ring. He didn't even want to be in the same ring with him. And he goes on and on about how great he is, and he's very intense, and he delivers a scathing line to AJ Styles and talks about, hey man, you want to know why the WWE title has never been the focal point of the show? You want to know why that is? Look in the mirror. And I was like, wow. Because AJ, he hasn't been the main event. It's always been Brock and it's always been Roman. And we've seen that for years. One title is just not the main event. And during the Miz's epic and orgasmic rant, he basically challenges the winner. He said, whether it's you retaining at Crown Jewel or whether it's you winning the belt at Crown Jewel, I got next. So there you go, guys. The table is fucking set. I've been saying this for weeks, that you gotta do Miz and Bryan at WrestleMania. It's going to be hard to do. Daniel Bryan himself has expressed concerns with WWE actually being able to do it and carry on a storyline that long. And so far, they're actually pulling it off. They've done the SummerSlam match. They did the Hell in the Cell match. Then they did the quick 2-minute deal at Super Showdown that I was convinced was a botch, but really was WWE's plan all along. They didn't want to give us the big, long 30-minute back and forth blow-off encounter between Daniel Bryan and The Miz. They want to hold it off. And now you've got Daniel Bryan getting a completely separate match against AJ Styles. You might even do a Team Bryan and Team Miz type of thing at Survivor Series. Then you're into the Royal Rumble, to where neither guy will have to be in a one-on-one match because they will be in the Rumble probably. Or maybe even the Miz gets a title shot at the Royal Rumble. And then all you got to do after that is make it to WrestleMania. So they've actually set themselves up here where they could actually make it to WrestleMania. It's not too far off now, considering the pay-per-views that are on the horizon and ways you can stall this big match happening. And I think it's been brilliantly done so far. So far, WWE has proved Daniel Bryan and myself and all of us wrong. So far, they're on pace to give us that match. And with The Miz challenging the winner here, I can see The Miz showing up and screwing up the match at Crown Jewel. I don't think we're going to see a title change at Crown Jewel. I don't think Roman's going to drop it, and I don't think AJ's going to drop it. I think something's going to happen in that match where AJ wins. Hell, he might even win clean. Who knows? And if he does, and then The Miz goes on to defeat AJ Styles for the title later, that just gives The Miz more bragging rights with Daniel Bryan. Hey, I beat the guy that you couldn't beat. That victory you had over me in Australia, that was a fluke. You got lucky. I'm the champion, I'm the greatest, blah, blah, blah. Daniel Bryan can then go into the Royal Rumble and win it and challenge The Miz for the WWE title at WrestleMania 35, winning the title, crowning himself 5 years after he did it the first time at WrestleMania 30. Very awesome full circle moment for Daniel Bryan and the entire feud with him and The Miz. I want to see that. So if I had my choice and I was booking things, I don't even care that this is incredibly predictable. I want to do it anyway. So let me know what you guys think about that scenario. And incidentally, after the Miz TV segment, AJ Styles hung around to have a one-on-one match against Shelton Benjamin, a man that beat Daniel Bryan last week, and Daniel Bryan and The Miz both stuck around on commentary, which I thought was so funny. I mean, Daniel Bryan and The Miz's feud is so comical and entertaining to me. They fucking hate each other's guts, but it cracks me up how they can still coexist together and just trade insults back and forth. You know, it's not like a Samoa Joe AJ thing where you've got home invasions, you know, and it's so deeply personal. Yes, the issue between Bryan and The Miz is personal, but it's entertaining at the same time. And Daniel Bryan has a pretty lighthearted attitude towards things. It seems like he looks at The Miz with more amusement than hate. You know what I mean? Am I picking up on that vibe? Am I the only one picking up on that, or can you guys see that too? I kind of like the dynamic of the feud. It gives it different dimensions where you can have both guys pissed and angry at each other, and then you can also have the guys trading, you know, childish insults with each other as well and making fun of each other's wives, you know, and shit like that. So I kind of like the dynamic between the two of them, and I would really like to see this thing blown off at WrestleMania. Aside from what else we saw on SmackDown, I already mentioned the main event with Randy Orton defeating the returning Big Show to qualify for the World Cup. Other than that, the only other thing we really got on SmackDown was the continuation of the Rusev and Lana and Aiden English situation. Now, Aiden English had promised to show footage of what actually happened in Milwaukee. They left us with a cliffhanger last week. There was some footage of a hotel room where Lana comes in. Aiden English has his shirt off, and then she says, "I want you," and the camera cuts off. So Aiden English is in the ring cutting a promo, trying to convince all the fans that Lana wants him, and then Lana shows up and says, "Hey, you know, I was able to retrieve the rest of that footage because, you know, I figured out what your password was to your computer," or whatever. She gets her hands on the entire, you know, video, and she plays it up on the Tron. And when she said, "I want you," and it cuts off, she goes on to say, "I want you to know how much you mean to me and Rusev," and blah, blah, blah. English mistakes that for her coming on to him, and he kind of gets a little closer to her, and she's like, no, you got the wrong idea, and she leaves, and it's this really weird, embarrassing moment, and that's how the whole thing ends. Rusev then charges the ring and brawls with Aiden English, and that, I guess, is going to lead to some sort of a match, either a Crown Jewel, Survivor Series, whatever. Don't really care. I was somewhat intrigued by the one night in Milwaukee thing, but turned out to be, you know, what we thought it was, just a hoax. So that pretty much wraps it up for your Raw and SmackDown this week. Like I said, there was a lot to talk about. Looking ahead now to Crown Jewel and all of the matches set for that card, we of course have Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, and Braun Strowman for the Universal title. We've got AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan for the WWE title, and we've got DX versus the Brothers of Destruction. And we also have the World Cup tournament, the big 8-man tournament. So far, we have John Cena, Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, and Jeff Hardy qualifying for that thing. Next week, we're getting Shinsuke Nakamura versus Rey Mysterio. I fully expect Rey to qualify there and join his fellow legends in that field, leaving us 3 spots left. So you guys let me know what some of your ideas are to round out that field, and if you even like or care about my Samoa Joe idea. Looking ahead to Evolution as well, we of course have the 2 big title matches officially announced: Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella, and Becky versus Charlotte in a last woman standing match, and we've got the tag team match between Trish and Lita, and Mickie James and Alexa Bliss. Smackdown 1000 is coming up this coming Tuesday. Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I will be up here live reacting to that show. So far for that, we've got the Rey and Shinsuke qualifier, like I mentioned a minute ago, but also we've got the reunion of Evolution, the faction, not the pay-per-view, but the faction. So imagine that. In a matter of 8 days, we're going to have Triple H being a member of DX and Evolution. How crazy is that? And I'm curious to see what they're going to do next week on SmackDown when they bring Batista back and they have Randy Orton out there and Ric Flair. Do you think Randy Orton's going to RKO all of them? And is Triple H even going to allow anything to happen to him, considering he's also a member of DX? I mean, Triple H is a member of Evolution and DX all at the same time. So that's kind of interesting, to say the least. But with Batista coming back and making his return and doing this one appearance, I'm assuming, I don't know if it's going to lead to more. Generally, it does. Usually when you have a legend of this magnitude coming back for a show, you know, this could be hopefully the beginning of a conversation. Hopefully while Batista's there, he talks to management, talks to Vince, talks to Triple H, maybe finds himself back on WWE TV going into 2019. Maybe he makes an appearance in the Royal Rumble. Maybe he makes an appearance at Survivor Series. Maybe he makes an appearance at WrestleMania. Who knows? I like Big Dave. I think he's awesome. I'm happy for his success. I feel guilty about how hard I was on him back in 2014. Wasn't his fault. And I really kind of want to see him back just to do something. And hopefully it will not be the last time we see Batista this coming Tuesday on SmackDown 1000. Aside from that, that's all I've got written down. Oh, I've got one other funny note. This is totally random. I highly recommend going over to YouTube and checking out the video they just recently released on Braun Strowman's family. They have this little YouTube segment. It's called My Son is a WWE Superstar. They've done a few of them. I've seen the one on Kevin Owens. They might have done one on Bayley. I forgot who else, but it's a fun little segment, and they just did one on Braun Strowman where he goes back to his hometown, talks about his upbringing, and brings his parents on to talk about him, and his dad is a fucking carbon copy of Braun Strowman. It's unbelievable. Now, his dad is much older now, and he looks a lot different, but his dad used to be like a world-class, all-star, Hall of Fame softball player. And they showed footage of his dad back when he was Braun Strowman's age. They look exactly alike. They're both the same body type, same build, same hair, same face, same everything. It's uncanny. So go check out that video over on WWE's YouTube channel. You will probably get a big kick out of it. Aside from that, I've been really bad keeping track of the Mixed Match Challenge. Have not looked at that at all. I've looked at only a little bit of the Mae Young Classic. I'm sorry. I'm so busy. I just don't have time to really keep track of this. But some of you have tweeted me some links of some good matches. And I know the latest set of matches, second round matches that took place, I did see the outcomes of those. I think Caitlyn has been eliminated as well, as she made her return in this tournament. So I've been eyeballing it, but have not really been watching that much of it. But thank you to all of you who have been really cool, updating me and informing me of certain matches that I need to take a look at. And I will try my best to at least catch, the semifinals and finals of this thing. I also got a chance to take a quick peek at NXT this week on Wednesday night, and I saw the really good triple threat match for the North America title with Ricochet defeating Pete Dunne and Adam Cole. And I also liked the confrontation between Velveteen Dream and Tommaso Ciampa, and I really enjoyed Nikki Cross's involvement. It was fun to see her all over the show in the ring for that segment, and also doing some backstage stuff with Cassius Ohno and William Regal. They are still investigating who attacked Aleister Black, so a lot of that stuff should be coming to light here in the next few weeks on TV. And we are, looking ahead here to another TakeOver show coming up in just a few weeks as well. So I enjoyed getting a chance to kind of have a Wednesday night off and chill out and look at a little bit of the Mae Young Classic and watch some NXT. And I wish I had time to do more of that. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this week. I am out of stuff to talk about, and this is going to be a pretty long podcast. This is going to be over an hour, I'm assuming at least. So I'm going to get to work editing this thing and getting it up to YouTube. I want to thank all of you again for listening and hanging out with me for the past hour. And like always, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I guess I will catch you this coming Monday for my Monday Night Raw live watch-along. You guys have a great rest of your day and have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you real soon. Until next time, peace.